Hey guys, in this video we're going to go over a little bit of the basics of PHP and its syntax. Alright, so we're going to talk about variables, arrays, and loops. Alright, and I'm going to give you a couple examples. So let's start with a variable. A variable is a container for storing information. Alright, and that information can be a string, it could be an integer or a number, it could be a boolean, which is a true-false value, a function, and the list goes on. Alright, so what we have here is what we did in the setup when we set up our Apache server. We just have an index.php file and we can access it at php.dev. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just get rid of this and we're going to create a variable. Alright, so we'll say, let's call this myvar1 and we'll set it to hello world. Alright, now when you're creating a variable, there's a couple rules that you need to follow. Alright, so first it has to start with a $sign. Alright, if you don't have that there, PHP is not going to know that this is a variable. It also must start with either a letter or an underscore. Alright, now you can have numbers in your variables, but you can't start it with a number. It has to be a letter, either uppercase or lowercase, or an underscore. Alright, and then the variable has to only contain alphanumeric characters and underscores. Alright, so numbers, letters, underscores, that's it. It's also case sensitive. Okay, so it pays attention to that. And you can see the style I have here is called camel case, where the first letter is lowercase and then every word is going to be, the first letter will be uppercase. Alright, and you might see stuff like this, my underscore var. Alright, that's another popular convention. So if we save this and reload, nothing's going to happen because we're just creating the variable. If we want to output it onto the screen, we can use the echo command. Okay, so we'll say echo and then, myvar1. Okay, we need to end with a semicolon. And I realize that a lot of you, most of you probably know how to create variables and arrays, but just for the people that don't, and also for the people that might need kind of a refresher, that's what this section is all about. Alright, so let's reload and then you can see we're printing it onto the screen. So let's create another variable here. Alright, actually, you know what, before we do that, let's talk about concatenation. Alright, so you can concat a string onto a variable, and to do that we need to use a dot. Now if you know JavaScript, then you know that when you want to do the same thing, you'll use a plus. Alright, in PHP it's a period. Alright, and then the string needs to be in quotes. So what I'm going to do is just change this variable to be hello. Alright, and then in here we're going to echo out the variable and then we're going to concatenate the string world. Alright, so if we save that, now we're getting hello world. Notice there's no space here, so you would probably just do something like that. Yeah, there we go. Okay, now you can also concatenate variables together. So let's say myvar, why do I keep doing that? We'll say myvar2, and let's set that to world. Okay, now we could go ahead and just use the dot here and then concatenate myvar2. Okay, so we'll save that, and you can see there's no space, and even if I put a space like this, it's still not going to give us a space. What we need to do is concatenate a string in the middle of these with a space character. Alright, so now if we go and reload, now we get that space. Alright, so this is really simple stuff. And what I'm going to do is just comment this stuff out because I'm going to give these files to you guys and it should be in that lecture folder. So now let's go ahead and move on to arrays. Arrays are ordered maps and they can hold multiple values. Alright, so a variable itself can only hold one, but if we set it as an array, it can have multiple values. Alright, now arrays can be formatted as lists, hashes, and other types of multi-dimensional arrays. So I'm going to show you how to create a standard array and then an associative array, which is basically like a hash. If you've used something like Ruby on Rails, it's known as a hash. All right, so let's start with a really simple array. So let's create a variable called numbers. All right, and we're going to set that to array. Okay, we're going to use the array function, and then in here we're just going to put in just some random numbers. All right, so that gives us an array. Now if we try to echo out numbers, okay, if we try to echo an array directly, it's just going to give us the text array, all right, which obviously isn't helpful at all. So there's a function we can use for this called print r. All right, so if we say print r and we pass in our array and save, reload, now you can see it's showing us the array. All right, and notice that each value here has a key, which is a number, okay? Now arrays are zero based, so if you want to get this value right here, this is at the 0 index in the array, all right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can see up here, 4 is 65, which is the last. Now let's say we want to access just one of these in the array, all right? So that's where we can use those indexes. So let's do echo numbers, and then we want a set of brackets, and let's put in a 1. All right, now if we go ahead and reload that, it's going to give us 45, which is the second item here, because remember it's 0 base, so this one is 0, this is 1. All right, so if we put in a 0 here, that should give us the first one, which is 12. All right, now this ends at 4, so if we put in a 5 and reload, we're not going to get anything, okay? And depending on your error reporting, you may get an error for this. All right, so that's how we can access individual values in the array. Now, in addition to this format, you can also use brackets. So if we say numbers equals, and then we can put a set of brackets, and we can then put in our values. Okay, and we'll comment that. All right, and this should give us the same thing. All right. Now, those are just very simple arrays. We also have associative arrays. So let's go ahead and create one of those. So I'm going to create a variable called ages, and we're going to set that to an array. And just for formatting, I'm going to go ahead and bring that down there. And let's say John. And then to point the key to a value, you want to use equals and then greater than. All right, so we'll say John is, actually we'll just use these as integers, is 35. And we'll say Mary is 27. And Bob, is 55. Okay, so now we have an associative array of ages. Now, if we want to get, let's say, Mary's age, we could go ahead and say echo ages, and then we want to put the key in here. In this case, it would be Mary. All right, so let's go ahead and reload. And it's case sensitive. All right, so we want to go like that. All right, so that gives us 27, which is Mary's age. Now, there's different functions you can use on arrays as well. So count is a big one. This just gives you the number of values in the array. So we'll put in ages. Whoops, we need our $sign. Okay, if we say count ages, and that doesn't work. We need to echo. All right, so that gives us 3 because we have 3 ages in here. All right, now some other functions. There's a lot of them, and I'm not going to go over all of them or even close to all of them. But we have one called array pop. And what that does is it pops off the last value here. All right, so if we run that and then we try to echo the count, it's going to be 2. All right, now if we want to, let's do a print r of ages. and we get John and Mary. Bob is not there because we used array pop. All right, and then we can also use a function called array shift, and that's going to do the opposite. It's going to take it from the beginning. All right, so if we reload, we only have Mary because we used pop to get rid of Bob and shift to get rid of John. All right, and php.org has all the array functions if you want to check some more of those out. All right, so let's move on to loops. Okay, so loops will basically, actually, you know what? Let me just go like that, comment everything out, and then just uncomment these. So a loop will iterate through and run some code based on if something's true or not. All right, so let's start out with a for loop. All right, so if we say for, and this is going to take in 3 different parameters. All right, so the first one, we're going to set a variable I. We're going to set it to 0. Okay, then we want to put a semicolon, and now our condition. So we're going to say, as long as I is less than 5, then run whatever we put down here. All right, but we also have to put in a third parameter of our increment, which is going to be I plus, which is going to increment it by 1. All right, so let's in here just do echo, and we'll just echo out the I. All right, now remember, each loop, each iteration, this is going to change because we're adding 1 to it. And then when it gets to this condition, and this is no longer true, then it's going to stop. All right, so let's save that and reload, and you can see we get 0 through 4. All right, because we started at 0, did an iteration, this went up to 1, we did another one, then it went to 2, then 3, then 4, and then this will no longer be true, okay, because I has to be less than 5. If we want the actual 5 to show up, then we could say less than or equal to 5. All right, if we reload, then we get 0 through 5. All right, now a while loop is pretty much the same thing. Let me just give you an example. All right, so we have to set the variable outside of the actual loop. Okay, so I equals 0, and then we're going to say while. We'll say while I is less than or equal to 10, then do something here. So let's do echo, and we'll put a string that says number, and then we can concatenate on the I. All right, and then we'll concatenate again a line break. Okay, and then we got to make sure that we do our increment, so I plus plus. All right, so let's go ahead and try that. And now you can see that we're getting the string number, and then whatever that current iteration is, and then just a line break to put it on a separate line. All right, so that's a while loop. Next thing we have is a for each loop, and that is strictly used for arrays. All right, so if we go up here and let's grab the numbers array and bring it down here. All right, and then we're going to say for each. Let's tab this over. We're going to say for each numbers, okay, the name of the array, as, and then the singular version of that array, of that text, so just number. And then we can say echo, we'll say this is number, and then we'll just concatenate on number. All right, and let's put a line break as well. All right. Whoops, what did I do? That's not right. Okay, so now you can see that each one of these represents the value in that current iteration. All right, and we can also do, if we get our ages, we can do an associative array as well. Okay, so let's put that there, and then we'll say ages as age. All right, and then let's echo out age. We'll do age, and then we'll just do line break. Okay, so that's going to print out the ages. Now, we can also get the keys if we want. All right, so to do that, we can say ages as key age. All right, and then let's do echo key. Yeah, actually, you know what we could do is change this to name, and then we'll say name is, actually we need to concatenate a string, so space is space. Okay, and then we're going to add to this, we'll say years old. All right, put a space there as well. So let's go ahead and save that, reload, and we get John is 35 years old, Mary is 27 years old, Bob is 55 years old. All right, so we can access both the key and the value. All right, so that's going to do it for this lecture. We went over variables, arrays, and loops. In the next video, we're going to take a look at functions and as well as if statements and some other stuff. All right, so I will see you then.